Hey, what's up, ladies and gentle tubers? My name is Tyler. Welcome back to the eveRide channel, where today we're talking about what is the point of this and this. A peak or a visor, depending on what you want to call it, and a face shield. On a dual sport helmet, does it make sense for you to have it? Should you be wearing a street helmet? Should you be wearing a dirt helmet? That's what we're gonna go over. First, it all depends on the kind of riding you do. Obviously, on the street, wear this. In the dirt, wear this. When should the dual sport helmet be an option? And we're gonna answer that by going over the point of the peak. So we've got this really nice Troy Lee Designs carbon helmet. Now obviously there's kind of a baseball cap shape and most people think that that's all it's for. Truthfully, let me throw this thing on real quick. Let's say you're in front of me and your back tire starts spinning and you start kicking up rocks and stuff like that. We call it roost. You start kicking up some roost. I don't want that hitting my goggles, even though my goggles are gonna do a good job protecting my face. I'm also gonna wanna just do this, and that roost is gonna hit this instead of my face and getting all over my goggles, causing problems, causing vision issues. So you guys, that is the purpose of a peak. For hardcore dirt riding, and honestly, your peak has gotta be sticking out there quite a ways for it to do any good for the sun, or really for that roost. So let's talk about a peak on a dual sport helmet. And I'm not gonna lie, this peak on this show is pretty nice. Most peaks when you're on the highway are going to act like a sail. If you turn your head left or right, the wind's gonna hit that and it just pulls your head all over. And there's no question about it, absolutely no dispute about this. Having a peak on your helmet is going to be more wind resistance, more wind problems than not. There's no peak designed that completely negates all wind resistance. However, I have to say, the Shoeies come pretty close. They've obviously put this through a wind tunnel and done some testing because it's not that bad. However, they still acknowledge that it's not perfect. And so they've done something quite smart with this helmet. And a lot of dual sport helmets do the same, just not quite as easily. So let me show you real quick. They have these little screws on the side and you just twist it half a turn, or a quarter turn, I mean. And then you push this little guy here and slide that. And this peak will just come right off super easy. And now you have all of the benefits of a strictly road helmet. This is very quiet. It's nice and smooth, and so you don't have a lot of obstructions or things like that for wind to catch on. It's very similar to a road helmet. The only real difference is this is gonna allow a little more airflow because that chin bar, this is a chin bar, it comes out just a hair more than on a standard road helmet. But as you'll notice, still quite a bit less on this full dirt helmet. That's another thing, is these dirt helmets are designed to have maximum airflow going through while still protecting the face. One advantage of having a full dirt helmet is it's basically like you're having air being turbocharged directly into your face. Whereas this helmet, you can see there's not quite the big huge vents. They've just got a couple, and on this helmet the vents are also really sparse as well. So you can see where that would be a real benefit in some cases and a real hassle in other cases. A huge benefit if you're riding on trails going nice and slow, really needing that airflow, because there's not a lot of air flowing. Maybe you're riding some technical terrain. You're gonna want as much breathability and airflow as possible. On the other hand, riding on the road, having all that airflow with wind and all kinds of stuff coming up from people's tires, rain, snow, hail, whatever, you're gonna want a face shield, and you're gonna want as closed off of a seal as possible for wind noise, for all that stuff. So obviously a dirt helmet on the highway is not a very good idea. So let's go ahead and put this back on. I can't believe how slick that is. It's so cool, guys. So the other advantage or disadvantage of a dual sport helmet is this face shield. The Shoei's got a really nice one. It's just a one-hand opening. It's got a lot of detents to go up and down. And it's also thicker at the top of the shield, and so that it doesn't get so much flex like on other cheaper dual sport helmets. So this is really quite nice. However, let's say that you do need a nice tight seal around your eyes like would come with a goggle. Let's say you don't want a lot of dust and stuff, because even with this face shield down, this is gonna restrict a lot of airflow, which again, great on the highway, terrible in the dirt. And that dust is actually gonna filter right up, and it's still gonna get in your eyes past the shield unless you're wearing a chin skirt, which would restrict airflow even more. So you may want to lift this up and have some goggles ready to go. Let me just pull these off of the dirt one here. And this is kind of where things get a little bit trickier with a dual sport helmet. Because traditionally dual sport helmets are a little, if not a lot heavier than off-road helmets. And that weight's gonna make a big difference too. So you can see there, that looks pretty standard. However, if you look closely right here, there's a problem. This face shield is actually gonna make your goggles fit just a little bit wonky. It's not a deal breaker, but it's also not optimal, right? Something that you can do with the Shoei, which is really quite cool, is there's a tab right here. You can pull that tab down, and then you can actually just lift this whole thing out very easily, and then clip it back in just as easily, but I can't do it without looking at it. There we go, snapped it back in. So this face shield is also going to come off. Now the only disadvantages of having a quick release peak and a quick release face shield is where are you going to store that stuff? So you guys, those are some of the pros and cons of having a dual sport helmet. Yes, it kind of does it all and it looks really cool doing it, but I've got to say, if you're riding only on the street, you're only commuting, you're only, riding on road, doing on-road things, stick to a road helmet. This peak is not going to do you any favors on the highway. No matter how well designed it's going to be, it's just not going to be as good as this. If you don't have a license plate on your motorcycle, or if you do have a license plate on it and you're only using that plate to get across roads to go to different trails, then by all means, get a dirt helmet. They're much lighter. They're very, very good at what they do. The airflow is fantastic. So why wear a dual sport helmet? This is kind of the 50-50 option where it doesn't do everything perfectly and it doesn't do everything terribly either. It's a little heavier because it has a little more features. It's not going to have as much airflow, which is a good thing and a bad thing, but it's just kind of meeting in the middle. The really, really funny thing about peaks though is on your adventure ride or on your dual sport ride, are you really going to be riding right behind somebody and having them throw big old chunks off their knobs to where you need that peak to go down and protect your eyes? My guess is probably not. And if you're honest with yourself, if you put on your helmet, this helmet is so quiet and so comfortable, it's unbelievable. Anyway, if you put on your dual sport helmet and you actually look up, most dual sport helmets, especially the cheap ones, you can't even see the front of your peak. You actually see right here at the brow, and your peak might extend just a little bit. This one's actually quite good. It comes down quite a ways, but really for sun protection, for roost protection, this is one of the best helmets for it, but it's really still quite mediocre, especially when compared with a full dirt helmet. When I put on the full dirt helmet, for example, I can see a huge chunk of the peak right there, and I know that that's going to block a lot of sun and a lot of roost if I put my helmet down. Whereas on this, it's just a small amount. So really, how much of a peak do you really need, and how much sacrifice are you willing to make to have that cool kind of Space Marine look versus just a nice, clean road helmet? Really, it comes down to how cool you want to look. I mean, obviously, I think they all look cool. I think they're all really good looking helmets. But realistically, do you need a peak? The answer is probably no. However, if you are going to do some true adventure riding where you're going to need that deflection factor and a little bit of that sun protection, this is a really good option, especially because it is so modular. You can pull the peak off, you can pull the visor off, you can run goggles, you can run it as a full street helmet. It really is kind of a do-it-all helmet, and that's exactly what we want in a dual sport, and it's exactly what we want in a dual sport helmet. However, I'm telling you, if you're gonna stick on road, stick with the on-road helmet. If you're gonna stay only on the dirt, stick with one of these. It's lighter, more airflow, but if you really need something in the middle, this is gonna be where you wanna spend your money. So you guys, thank you so much for watching. Now obviously this video wasn't meant to convince you to buy this exact Bell qualifier or this exact Shoei X2 Hornet or this exact Troy Lee Carbon. The main idea is to say, hey, this is what dirt helmets are good for, this is what road helmets are good for, and really, do you need a dual sport helmet? And if you do, I highly recommend this one. There's also other ones that you can find in my Amazon list. That is below. So you guys, stay safe on your rides. Much love as always, and thank you for watching. eveRide out.